agenda is nominations for vice president.
I'd like to nominate Tom Chapa.
I would second that. And I will do a roll call vote. Tom Chapa,
Yes.
Heather Del Conte,
Yes.
Pamela Dowd,
Yes.
Lisa Glidden, absent, James McKenzie,
Yes.
Sean Ahmed,
Yes.
Linda Serena.
Yes.
The vote has passed 601. Tom, 6-0. Thank you. If I could have Tom. Congratulations to both. Next on the agenda is school year 2021-22 appointments of the Oswego City School District. Would you like me to read all the appointments?
In order, do we need to reinstate or remove the temporary designation?
I'm sorry,
Do we need to remove the temporary designation and go
no,
back?
Heather is president, so she is
We don't
taking
have
over.
to. Great, thank you.
Okay.
On the agenda, independent auditors first, right? F1 is independent auditor.
What is your question, Jim? About the,
So doing F1 on the agenda, is that what we're doing now?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
okay. So the appointments for the 2021-22 school year are Architect of Records, King and King, Asbestos Designee, David Crisipolo.
I'm sorry, Karen. We are at independent auditor first.
F1.
I missed it for some reason. Thank you. First item is independent auditor, appointment of the school year 2021-22, that the Board of Education approve the appointment of Mengel, Metzger, and Barr and Company as independent auditor for the Oswego City School District for the school year 2021-22, subject to annual renewal by the Board of Education pursuant to Board Policy 1334. Do you have the policy? I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for the house. At this time, I do not have the cost for this amount, or for this item. Do you want me to go ahead with the vote and come back with the price? You can take it after that.
Well, may I recommend to the board, Nancy, could you go over and get the cost, and then we can come back to this item after everything's out? Is that be all right with the board?
Talk, or we just go to number 2 and bring it up?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
move to number 2. Okay, we want you.
bring it
she's
back.
gonna get the price and come back, and I'll go on to the other ones.
Thank you.
Okay. Appointments of the Oswego City School District Board of Education recommendations. Architects of Records, King and King. Asbestos designee, David Crisafulli. Clerk of the Board of Education and School District Clerk, Karen Canale. Dignity for All Students Act, Robert Duffy. Dignity Act Coordinators, Dr. Linda Doty, Dr. Mary Golkemer, Mrs. Stephanie Griffin, Mrs. Jennifer Sullivan, Ms. Donna Simmons, Mrs. Mary Beth Vieira, and Mr. Ryan Lanigan. District Physician is Dr. Robert Morgan. District Treasurer is John Edwards. District Treasurer is Joyce Galetta. Health Insurance Consultant Services, EMB Insurance. Internal Auditor is Bonadio and Company. Internal Claims Auditor, Thomas Frawley. Records Retention and Disposition Officer, Nancy Squires. Records Access Officer, Karen Canale. School District Purchasing Agent, Nancy Squires. Tax Collector, Joyce Galetta. Medicaid Compliance Officer, Lisa Marie Carter. Official Bank Depositories, JP Morgan Chase, Manhattan Bank. Official District Newspaper, Oswego Palladium Times. Official media website, Oswego Daily News. Title IX Compliance Officer, Robert Duffy. Insurance carrier, Eastern Shore Associates. If I could have a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the independent auditor. Oop, I have it right here. That the Board of Education approve the appointment of Mengel, Metzger, Bar and Company as independent auditor for the Oswego City School District for the school year 2021-22, subject to annual renewal by the Board of Education pursuant to Board Policy 1334 at a cost of $23,975. If I could have a motion?
We went back to F1 just for everyone's.
It's actually on there twice, I apologize. And the second one had the price.
Can you say that number one more time, please?
Sure, it's $23,975. And I'm sure Nancy could explain the number for you when she gets back.
So you found the price there? Is that what
Yes.
you're saying? Okay, so she just read it.
Let's have a motion in a second, and then we can discuss if we'd like.
If I
I'll
could
make a
have
motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Did anyone have any questions?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the approval of all Oswego City School District policies that the Board of Education of the City School District of Oswego, New York approve all policies of the Board of Education of the Oswego City School District previously approved in effect shall remain in effect until amended as prescribed in Policy 1410, formulation, adoption, and amendment of policies, provided further that all 2021-22 policy revisions to the existing policies from Erie 1 BOCES are hereby approved unless pulled separately for discussion by the board. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So I'd like to pull one of those, the cellular phone number 5322. So I'd like to pull that out and, I'll make a motion to pull that and have the policy committee and Dr. Callaghan take a look at it and make recommendations for us.
Okay. Could I have an amendment to pull policy 5322 from item 4?
That
That's my
was
motion.
the motion, we just need a
Yep.
second.
That's my motion.
Okay.
We just need a second.
Could I
I'll
have a
second. I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'll just say that having read it, looking at what some other districts do, I think it's in our best interest to address this policy and see what changes need to be made.
And it does seem that the language in the policy doesn't really fit what we're doing, so, kind of to bring some, consolidate best practice with the policy.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is purchasing policy, annual review. The Board of Education adopts for the 2021-22 school year purchasing policy number.
Sorry, real quick, Karen. Point of order, that was the motion to
Yeah, now we need to vote.
To pull that. We still have the motion to act on for the rest of the policies.
Right.
Could I have a motion
I'll
to adopt the policy, all the policies except policy 5322?
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
In second.
Linda
was-
seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is purchasing policy annual review. The Board of Education adopts for the 2021-22 school year purchasing policy number 5410 and regulation number 5410R and 5410R2 as presented. Could I have a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5, amendment of tax rules. That the Board of Education of the City School District of Oswego, New York authorizes the Executive Director, Business and Finance, upon receiving the appropriate papers, to direct the school tax collector to amend the tax rolls and refund the erroneous tax collected or change the amount of tax due. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is investment of funds, that in accordance with section 2503, sub 1 and 1723A of the education law and the applicable section of local finance law, the Executive Director of Business and Finance of the City School District of Oswego, New York, be authorized to invest and or deposit general fund monies or monies of other funds through a commercial bank or other financial institution within the criteria as established by the Board of Education, Policy 5220. If I could have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Next is certification of payroll, that the Board of Education authorizes Executive Director of Business and Finance, or in his or her absence, the Superintendent of the Schools, to certify payrolls of the Oswego City School District of New York for the 2021-22 school year. If I could have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 8, health services provided to private schools and other school districts, authorization to sign. That authorization be granted for the President of the Board of Education and the Clerk of the Board to execute contracts for health services to be provided under provisions of Section 912 of the Education Law to children residing in the school district of Oswego, New York, and attending non-public schools and other school districts for the 2021-22 school year as may be required. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Number 9, health services provided to private schools within the school district, authorization to sign school year 2021-22, that the authorization be granted for the President of the Board of Education and the Clerk of the Board to execute contracts for health services that the City School District of Oswego, New York provides for children attending non-public schools according to Section 912 of the Education Law for the 21-22 school year. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Number 10, Section 504, Committee on Special Education and Committee on Preschool Special Education Recommendations, that the Board of Education appoints Section 504 Committee, Committee on Special Education, and Committee on Preschool Special Education for the Oswego City School District for the 21-22 school year, effective immediately. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Impartial hearing officers, that the Board of Education appoint the impartial hearing officers as maintained by the State Education Department impartial hearing reporting system for the Oswego City School District for the 2021-22 school year effective immediately. If I could have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is petty cash funds, that the petty cash funds be established for the school year 2021-22 in accordance with Board Policy 5530 and Regulation 5530 and Regulation 5530.1 as presented. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is disposal of surplus, obsolete equipment, materials, and vehicles. Approval for the 2021-22 school year. That the Board of Education authorize the Executive Director of Business and Finance to dispose of various surplus, obsolete equipment, supplies, and/or vehicles which are no longer in use by the Oswego City School District as the need arises during the 2021-22 school year, and that the Director of Business and Finance be authorized and directed to dispose of the items by auction or sealed bid, disposal or donation to a nonprofit organization, and to report to the Board of Education any monies from the sales thereof realized. Motion?
Move it.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'd just like to say, I really hope that we try to utilize this piece of donation to non-for-profits when it's possible, because I know in years past we've been called about throwing away desks and things that really still had value, and so I really hope that that's where we focus.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is attorney for the Board of Education and School District, of attorney appointment. That the Board of Education appoint the following as the Oswego City School District Attorney for the 2021-22 school year. General Counsel, Buckle Law Firm, PLLC, Special Counsel for our Forenza, PC, Bond Counsel, Bonchanic and King. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'd actually like to make a motion to, and I've never done this before, I'm looking over at Jim to make sure I do this right, but I'd like to make a motion to divide so that we separate out our district representation with special counsel. I really am more concerned about removing the special counsel, not removing, but having it be a separate item.
Okay.
So my motion is to divide the special counsel out and have it considered separately. So that's my motion. I need a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, just one moment.
So now we'll just be voting on the resolution for general counsel and bond counsel, and then we'll move to a resolution for special counsel.
Let's look at here. That the Board of Education appoint the following for general counsel, Buckle Law Firm. Could I have a motion?
And we'd also be,
So,
Correct.
you've already had that motion, so right now we're acting on the motion for special counsel, general counsel, bond counsel.
and bond
So
counsel,
that's
yeah.
one motion, and it's already been moved and seconded, and we just need to discuss and then vote.
Okay, so that's the difference between removing it or amending
so-
versus divide.
Yeah, so for Heather to split the motion, to divide the motion is what it's called. Now you have two separate motions that need to be acted upon, but since they've both been motioned and seconded, they're both active. Now you just discuss one vote, discuss the other one.
Wouldn't I have to bring all three to the board to vote on this?
Yes, but in separate ones. So the first vote, Karen, the first vote should be now for for general counsel and bond counsel. So the board needs to vote on that
So
first.
we don't need motions and seconds, you're saying now we're discussing that one now, so,
Okay.
okay.
So you're discussing general counsel right now.
General counsel and bond
And bond
counsel. So
counsel.
let's do that first.
Okay,
Good
any
motion.
discussion on general and bond counsel?
So I do have a question on that. I noticed in previous years, we only had one listed counsel. And I did notice in reading the materials that the Ferrara firm specifically says that they will not do bond things. So I can understand doing a bond thing for that, their cover letter says that. But I wasn't sure about Buckle, because in years past, we've not had specifically listed a bond counsel. Will Buckle Law Firm not do bond? Or is there a reason to have
I can actually, yeah, bond work is incredibly specialized, and we have had Bond Nick and King, which is now called Bond, ironically, do our bond work forever and ever. I can't remember when they haven't done it. They're about the only gig in town that does it. So, don't quote me on that, by the way. There probably are others, but they're very well known, and they've done a good job for us. So, I'm not familiar with approving them here at reorganizational meeting. I'm not sure we've done that before.
Right, that's why I asked. I looked
Yeah.
at the last four of these meetings that are on board docs, and we've only ever done the one council. And I'm fine with doing that. I have no problem with it. Actually, if they're the ones who actually do it, I think it's good to, show that, to attest to it, that that's what's being done. It was just a question because it's new.
Yeah, it's new to me too to have more than just our general
Okay.
approval.
Yeah, no, I'm good with it. Just wonder why it's new.
If I could have a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we will move to special counsel for our Forenza. Could I have a motion?
Well, we've already made the motion, we just need to discuss now.
Okay. Could I have a discussion?
So we will use special counsel when general counsel tells us it's out of his scope. Is that why we're having special counsel? Correct.
Yes, so whenever we hear from general counsel that something is certainly not within his scope, we do go to special counsel. We also, if you recall earlier in the year, we had the special counsel because we were involved with the emergency project, and there were a number of items that needed to be taken care of, during that whole process. And still, we have some things we're still looking at, which you'll hear about this morning. But so yes, when there are items that are outside of the scope of the general counsel, then we go there.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure the public understands why we have
Yes,
another one on that.
So, and I actually would like to just have more conversation about our special counsel, only because our current contract, the rates run out according to the contract, I think this month. So I'm not exactly sure if the rates have increased or where we are with rates. Maybe see a renewed contract. And also, I think it's really important to have a really good understanding of line of communication, because I think does get very confusing when we have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And I guess I'd like to have more discussion for me before I approve a special counsel to understand kind of the line and chain of command and the chain of communication when it comes to our representation. And also, I know actually we don't have to approve special counsel at our reorganizational meeting. And our contract with our special counsel, I believe, lasts till the end of the month, if I'm not mistaken. So there will be no gaps in our coverage should we need them over that time. And it'll just give us a little time to maybe explore it a little more and discuss it and come back at the next meeting and make a good decision.
Heather, you are correct. The rates are in effect through July 31, 2021.
Okay.
So we do have the month.
So I'm not exactly sure how this, I don't have to make another motion because we can just vote on it. We can just have our votes reflect how we feel about that. So I'll be voting no, just because I feel like I'd like to have more of a say or more of a conversation about our special counsel.
So the other option is if we're actually looking for information, and actually going through this discussion, especially with the soil remediation, that was something that was unique that came up that we absolutely needed that kind of help on. I'm just wondering how much we use them in relation to our general counsel and trying to understand that a little bit.
Might I suggest to the board, certainly open for more discussion and more conversation, but this does involve the work performance of particular folks that we contract with. Can we check to see if it's possible to have, I have the book here now, but I'm wondering if we can have a conversation since it discusses the work performance of particular employees or agents of the district, Can we have a discussion in executive? Because I think it might be best to address maybe the concerns there, if that might be possible. I'm just checking it out here in the law book about executive session. If we could do that, I think it would help to.
You know, just to save us time, I'm gonna move to table this item, and then we can figure out whether it's an executive thing or not. We can get time to get numbers if we need, you know, and then we have a meeting in 2 weeks, we can vote on it, as Heather said. There will be no lapse because it isn't up to the 31st. So, I'm gonna move the table this.
And also,
Heather, I can hear you, Jim, clearly because you're not talking into the mic. When you guys are talking into the mic, we're getting half of what you're saying. I don't know exactly.
if I face you, is it different or no?
If you talk without the mic, we can understand you. If you project your voice, but with the mic on, for some reason, it's bouncing and I'm touching every other one. I can hear you.
I have the teacher's voice.
Yeah,
You'll hear
can
me
you check
in
that?
that corner.
Can you try to just maybe do something with the sound?
Lynn,
Maybe
can
having
you
some
hear me?
trouble.
Talk like this?
Yeah.
Okay, Ariana, gonna do that? Okay.
And everybody else.
I'm glad you spoke up. Yeah. Okay.
Math. It's good.
So, do you wanna know where, do you guys know where we're at? And we're talking, Jim just, made a motion to table our discussion about special counsel, so that we fully understand what it is that we're voting on, we understand what the contract, if the rates have gone up, and we also need to explore, what pieces of that discussion we should have in public and what pieces, actually go to something that might be an executive, conversation. So the motion to table has been first and seconded to table just special counsel. So I think that's where we're at.
So now we need to move to vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I did just notice in the law book here, it does say that you can have a discussion in executive to discuss the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or a corporation, or dismissal or removal of a particular person or a corporation as well. So we can have that
So
discussion.
an organization you contract with.
I believe
is
it could go
included.
into corporation, so we want to double check it and make sure.
And I can't hear.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now? I was saying, I read through here what's in the law book, but I think we should certainly have a conversation with our legal folks. Can you hear me? And what it says is that you can have a discussion about the employment history of a particular person and or a corporation, and I believe that this may be covered under corporation, but want to make sure if that's all right with the board. Okay?
Did you understand any of that?
No.
Okay.
I think if you get away from the mic and project your voice, we can hear you completely.
I'm sorry. I was saying I read here in the legal book that it talks about having an executive to discuss the particular appointment, employment, promotion, also of a particular person and or a corporation. And so I believe that this may fall into corporation, but want to check with legal to make sure. So it might be good to table it until.
You just gotta use
Sounds
our
good.
mean voices.
Sorry, Linda.
I can use my mean voice.
Okay, next on the agenda, student representative to the Oswego City School District Board of Education for the 21-22 school year. Whereas each school year, the Oswego City School District elects one student representative to serve a one-year term on the
I'm sorry,
Oswego City School
Karen.
District.
Karen, I think we're,
Yep.
I'm not sure where
Oh,
you
I skipped
are.
one.
We're at
Yeah.
number
You
15.
skipped
Yep.
two. I'm confused. I'm trying to figure out where you are. Yeah, we need 15 and 16.
No, I'm sorry about that, I did skip one. It is the committee appointments of the Board of Education for the 21-22 school year. Right now, the board has a policy committee, a facilities committee, and an audit committee. And I would need to know who would like to be on those committees.
Karen, I believe I currently serve on policy and audit. I would remain on both of those committees.
I know Lisa would like to stay on policy.
I'd like to stay in facility.
I'll volunteer for facilities as well.
So I need one more for policy, one more facilities, and two for audit.
I'd like to remain on facilities.
And I'll stay on policy.
I'll do audit.
What would you like?
Audit.
Audit? So I believe I still need one for policy. I have Pam and Heather.
Lisa, is it also?
Lisa?
Lisa, also
Okay.
policy, yeah.
Audit, I have Pam and Sean. Anyone else like audit?
Anybody want to do that? Lisa said she'd like to be on an additional committee if
So we'll put
possible.
Lisa on audit.
Yep.
So the committees are full.
Although I think we have discussed also having alternates, either named or some kind of a general policy about alternates, which we can do at another time. But if we want to name alternates, we should do that now. Because there has been times when people can't serve.
We run into problems not being able to hold any of these because of it?
But we don't have to have quorum for these. So yes, we have had moments when like one person is at the meeting.
I think it would be hard to name a name because it depends on when the meetings are. You know, if it's a conflict with a meeting, I don't know how you can name a name as an alternate to a policy without knowing when the meeting is. Like if you can be there or if the alternate can be there. It's,
I would just submit myself to be an audit or an alternate for any of the committees. So if I've got the time and the flexibility to do it, and it comes up, I'll certainly step in. As opposed to trying to name one for each committee,
right.
it might be a little more difficult. Just have
Yeah.
general 2 or 3 alternates that would be willing to step in.
Okay, we can come back to the concept of alternates, but yes, I'm also willing to do that. But so we'll come back to the concept of alternates.
Also, at the county board, I'd like to step away from, and not remember later. Maybe representative that meets probably 2 times in a year to coordinate about their activity.
Okay.
That we present. I would love to step away.
I'm sorry, I did not hear
So
that.
Linda is bringing up the county board as well. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
sure if that's a board committee, but it's definitely something we have to have representation on. So we will be looking for someone to take, and she has served faithfully for many years.
So I'm,
If you want to.
So just, I was sharing quickly, I believe that there's a provision for a pro quo person who could be used, like, you know, if something comes up and you need an extra person there. I need to check that legally and then get back to the board on it, so I will check that. Okay, I do believe there's a pro quo provision. I can't recall where it is, but I'll find it and I'll get back to the board, okay?
so if I could have a motion for policy committee, Pam, Heather, and Lisa. Facilities, Linda, Jim, and Tom. Audit, Pam, Sean, and Lisa. Could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the student representative.
I think we have district organizational chart.
Can we go to this for a second? Number 16, approval of the 21-22 district organizational chart. That the Board of Education approve the organizational chart that is listed.
Make a
Motion?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Well, there's some discussion, I think, about it.
I just had. I just had a quick question. I was looking at our policies and I saw the duties of the school attorney. And the first sentence of that reads, "The Board of Education shall employ a school attorney who shall be responsible to the Board of Education for guidance on all affairs which are of legal nature, including but not limited to," and then it talks about it. But as that sentence reads to me, that the Board of Education shall employ a school attorney who shall be responsible to the board, I'm just wondering if the school attorney in that flow chart should be coming from the Board of Education rather than from the superintendent. I don't know the answer to that. That's why I'm asking.
I think that's another question that I would need to look up in the law book to make sure that we have it written correctly. I can check
Yeah,
for the board
actually,
and find out.
yeah, I think he brings up a good point. There's a number of these roles that I'm not exactly, if we're talking about arrows being authority arrows, like a flow of authority, if it's flow of communication, that's one thing, but if it's flow of authority, which is I think the changes that we did make, like technically speaking, Mathis, do you supervise our tax collector?
So, you know, we do work with the tax collector. I mean,
You work
so
with
the
it.
board certainly there are a couple of people that certainly the board, you know, is responsible for, if you want to say technically. But we do, as superintendents do, make sure that the tax collector is doing what they're supposed to do and checks in on them, and then we make sure we bring back the tax rolls and everything to the board. So
I'm wondering if we can remedy that whole situation, school attorney aside, by just putting double arrows, right? It's a flow back and forth of, and then we're not really talking about authority, but we're talking about communication. And I don't know how people feel about that, but we definitely want our organizational chart to, you know, reflect something meaningful.
So just for a note, that bylaw I'm speaking of is number 1337, just in case anybody's interested.
So I wonder if we should make a motion to table the approval of our organizational chart until we maybe make some of those changes and bring it back.
So you bring a copy? I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the student representative of the Oswego City School District Board of Education. Whereas each school year, the Oswego City School District elects one student representative to serve a one-year term on the Oswego City School District Board of Education. And whereas the student is to represent the Oswego City School District population and play an active leadership role. Whereas the Oswego City School District Board of Education accepts the student representative and expects active participation as a non-voting Board of Education member, and therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education endorses the selection of Zachary DeMont as the student representative according to the established guidelines, and that the Board of Education again appoints Zachary DeMont as the student representative to the Board of Education. Could I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I just like to say over the years we've had some amazing young people serve in that position, and last year's was no exception, and I'm really excited to meet Zach.
Yep. I know Zach, and I look forward to him being the student rep. I think that we're in for a treat.
Awesome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular board meeting of June 15, 2021, and the Special Education Board report of July 1st, 2021. If I could have a motion.
Move it.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is floor to the public. Today we have not had anyone sign up, so we'll move to the superintendent's report.
Okay. All right, board. Good morning. I'm not so used to saying good evening. We're going to just go ahead and jump on in. We have a couple things we want to share with you all today. First of all, I think I'd like to start out by highlighting our students. Let me see if I can get this clicker to work for me. We, as you all know, last week celebrated with all of our 2021 graduates. Very proud of all of them. Great graduation. Everything, I think, went off very smoothly. I want to thank all of our staff who were just working up to the actual day. There were so many different changes happening because of health regulations occurring and changing, and just making sure we had everything all set up in there. And our staff did a fantastic job and really rose to the occasion. And we are very proud of all of our graduates and just want to wish them a congratulations on their commencement. So just want to let folks know that the district is still in the process now of planning for the next school year. A lot is occurring right now. We are really, our goal at this point in time is to try to have everybody here 5 days a week. That's really what we like to do. As I've shared at the other meetings, The biggest concern that we have right now is just around transportation. We are thinking about a tiered transportation system if we can't get everybody on the same bus. We just don't know what that's going to look like as of yet. The governor has not released any information. We have been asking now for the past 6 to 8 weeks. Most of my colleagues have been writing, calling, and asking for details and information because we don't want to do what we did last school year. Last year, 2 weeks left before the school year started. Everybody's rushing, trying to figure out how this is going to go. We don't want to do that. As I've shared before, we're going to plan for both case scenarios. We just can't wait for the governor. So, board, you'll hear more about that very shortly. I have held off for a little bit in terms of sending out a bunch of information to the public because I don't want to confuse the public and get people kind of frustrated over, planning things preliminarily without the proper guidance in place. I think it'd be better if we could to have everything there and then solidify plans with our public. But we will include the public. We do want to hear what parents, what folks want to share with us as we start to come back for the next year. Summer programs will be starting here very soon. We have about a week or so before we get started with that. And that is moving every day. We are hoping that we will have many of our children participate. I will tell the board, we have heard from some of our parents that yes, this is a great idea, this is wonderful, however, I'm not sure if I want my kids to come for 30 days. And we understand that. We're working with parents. We get it's been a long year, a lot has happened, but the door is open, so we're trying to get as many people as we can to participate. Just want to let the board know that. August, we will need to have, again, that code of conduct hearing, special hearing with the board. So I want to share that information will be coming to you as well soon. And today begins the first day of our new principal for the Oswego High School, Mr. Flanagan. And board, I will certainly have him here at our next meeting. I want him to say hi to all of you all so you get to know who he is. Okay? All right. I'm going to ask if Peter and Doug can come on up to the table for us for just a little bit here. And you know what? There's a microphone there if you want to just pull that over. And
I can use the microphone, but I think I have that teacher's voice too high. Now I say that Marine Corps construction voice, if you can hear me.
yes, that is
All
good.
right, everybody?
However, Peter, just remember Matt's video recording this, and so
Okay.
it goes through that will help, okay? So we have right now an issue, and Nancy certainly can chime in as well on this too. We have an issue.
Yeah. Can you push that away and just talk
Pull it
about
away?
They're not hearing any words you're
I'm so
saying.
sorry. Can you hear me now?
Well, I can hear your voice.
Okay.
Did you get that mic?
Get the microphone away? Okay. So there is an approximate concern. We have a concern right now. There's an approximate 2-acre area in the area of the soil remedial place where the contractors have encountered some mucky soil that was not anticipated. So this has just come to our attention. So they've done some digging, and there's this like muck that's underneath where you dig. And what's happening is some of it is not. It's kind of like stuff is sinking in. So I'm gonna let Peter talk a little bit about it and share with you what we're thinking as of right now. So Peter, go right ahead.
As Dr. Calvin said, we encountered a muck level of soils that won't even support the weight of a person. I can literally walk out there, I can walk from the edge where it's supported, and go one step and we sink. So as you can relate, I'm about 185 pounds. Put a piece of equipment out there, it's just sinking below. Below that muck level, we are hitting or we're finding a substantial soil that will support what we need to do for work. Okay. What we're trying to do right now is to figure out what is the best way to remediate that muck level. There are 3 options that we are looking at right now. One of them is to basically just haul all of it out and have it refilled with the imported fill that we're using for that 2-foot layer of cover material that we're using on the rest of the project. We're not sure that's the best way because we're trying to figure out what the cost is because all that material needs to be hauled to the landfill as non-hazardous material, which becomes expensive. The second option that we've come up with is taking the material we have there and mixing it with a quick lime dust or a cementitious lime dust to try and dry it out to support the imported fill. That is expensive as well, and we're trying to figure out how much we're going to need in order to dry dry the product up in order to support the weight of the equipment to put the fill on. And also to make sure that that material is available. I think that everybody is, if anybody is out in the business or is out in the world right now and is trying to find something to put in their house or whatever, materials are in short supply. So we want to make sure that if we need 100 tons, that we have the ability to get 100 tons. The third option that we have, and we're trying to figure out from an engineering standpoint, is to put a geogrid across the top of that muck layer that might support the weight of the equipment and the material, the imported fill. Again, we're trying to get the price for that geogrid, how much we're going to need, and again, is that product readily available to put across there and then continue on with our work. To let you know, we're not stopping the work that we're doing elsewhere on the project. Any place that we are able to get to right now, we are working on that right now. So far today, to give you an update as to where we stand, I believe we've hauled off-site already roughly around 8,000 tons of material to the Oswego County landfill, and I believe we brought in roughly around 6,000 tons of imported fill to cover over. So right now, overall perspective-wise, I'd say we're about 50% complete with that project. I'm hoping, with regards to this mucky soil issue, that I'll have further and more detailed information by tomorrow, close of business, or Monday. But I want to make sure I have all the facts and the engineers have weighed in. We did have a meeting on Monday. We had Martin LaJudas, who is our hazardous materials engineer here. We had Appel Osborne here. Jenny Kurtz was representing Appel Osborne, who is a civil engineer. We also had Craig Daly, the architect, and myself and Doug, along with the contractor. We also had a separate individual, David Quell from Soil Solutions. If you understand what we were doing from the original project, the hazardous material that we're having to haul off, I apologize for that. We're mixing that with materials out on site. David Quell's the individual who came up with the idea of using that quick lime dust or that cementitious lime dust to mix in similar to what we're doing with the hazardous materials. So we're just trying to figure out cost, is it available, how much we're going to need, how quickly can we get it, and one of the things we are thinking about doing, but we want to make sure it's the right approach, is the quick lime dust we believe is somewhat available down in Pennsylvania. We can send somebody down to pick up a load of it to try and see if that works, but we're trying to weigh that and think about that before we make that decision. So hopefully by sometime close of business tomorrow or Monday, I'll have some further detailed information for you folks.
I have a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
What caused the water? Where was the water coming from?
Well, to try and give you my dumbed down explanation of it, what you had out there is basically a layer over what we found as these hazardous or non-hazardous materials, okay? And what we think has happened is that layer is just pushed down and suppressed it enough that it's kept that water out. Now that we're starting to excavate that material off, it's allowing that water to infiltrate that area. It is a mucky layer already, but now it's allowing more water to come in. One of the things that we thought about doing is, well, if it's just water, let's just pump it out and let it dry out. The minute we start pumping the water off-site, triggers DEC involvement, and we're preferring not to get them involved because that will also increase the amount of time that we've got to have here to pause.
But it sounds to me like we have a water problem. So
I
how
think-
can we be guaranteed, no matter what route we take to resolve it, that we're not going to have that water coming back in?
Okay, so it is a natural, what we think is just a natural occurring water level that you have in the ground, okay? So what we're trying to do is come up with the right solution. What we don't want to do, and a perfect example I'll give you is West Genesee High School. A number of years ago, they put their AstroTurf field down. But what they did is they just excavated a quick top layer of the soils, and they found some soft spots. And what they did is they dug out those soft spots, threw some stone in, and then put the turf out. Well, come the freeze-thaw cycle at wintertime, that stone absorbed that water. It then heaved during the wintertime, and when they plowed their field, because they kept their fields completely cleared during the wintertime, they ripped off their turf because they had that movement. So what we're trying to do, although we don't have turf there, we're trying to resolve whether or not we put stone in there, which is one of the first options we came up with, but then we get that possible differential settlement, and then do we just dry it out and let the natural water occur? Don't forget, we're putting a 2-foot layer of material over what's there, and that material is bridging everything we have. It's just what we don't want to do is throw this 2 foot of material in, because all that'll do is just push this muck out elsewhere and then contaminate everything else. So we're trying to look at all those issues so that we do the right, or recommend the right solution to you
Well,
folks.
and that allows me to follow up with my second question, which is, how much more of that field have we not touched and we don't know what's under it?
So the two areas that we have are the two lowest spots in that field, where we've dug down well below where we were before. So that's why we're getting into that level. The other areas, if you'll take a look at the field and you can walk out from the outside around the fence, you can see the two areas. One is the southernmost end at Buck Boulevard and Hillside, where we have a drainage outlet, okay? The other end is at the northeast corner, where we have a retention basin that is supposed to, as designed, hold some of that water. So it's in the two lowest areas of the field. Elsewhere, where we sort of got soft with the do not dig fabric and the 2 foot of imported fill, we've reached 90, the lowest compaction results we've had is 96%, and the highest is 98. For a lawn area and in accordance with the design, civil engineer's recommendations, we only have to meet 90%. So we're reaching those levels and no problem elsewhere. It's just these two low areas, which encompass about an acre at each point.
Was your contractors involved in the school district you were talking about?
Can you say that again?
You were talking about a school district that had a problem with the turf.
Yes, ma'am.
Was it your,
Was it our project?
corporation? Yeah.
No, it's not one of the projects we oversaw. We just know about that. In fact,
I think I
our,
have one more question.
okay.
There is a pile of dirt out there, and it's got a lot of green growing up past there. What's gonna happen to that pile of dirt?
That is the topsoil that is going to get spread across the entire level. So once we put our 2 foot of cover material in, we're supposed to be putting in 6 inches of topsoil just below your sod level. So that topsoil will be used and spread across the entire site.
One of the things, as a facility member and as a board member, is that every time we turn around and have a new situation up there, I'm just nervous about how much more could pop up.
It's a valid concern. I think that we're all in uncharted territory here, and all I can say is that we're doing the best we can with what we find and as quickly as we can, and looking out for your interests. We don't want to go and spend a bunch of money. The easiest thing for me to do would have been to get with you guys and say, it's going to cost $500,000, we're going to rip it all out and put stone in, but I don't want to do that. I want to try and find the best options, and we're employing Pell Osborne, we're bringing Martin LaJudas in, the architect. We're all putting our heads together. We're bringing in outside resources to make sure that we find the best solution. Overall, I think that we're in good shape, that we've limited, because it is the lowest spots, and we've worked our way from the center where the high spot is to the low spots, and we're continuing to work. So I think that I'm hoping that this is the last bit. I know that a year ago when we found this material, when we sent it off to the lab to have it tested, I was hoping and crossing my fingers and saying in my prayers that we don't find anything, because we didn't find anything initially out on site. Tests came back and we had this issue. I'm not a crystal baller. All I do is just deal with the situations that are at hand and try and present the best options
just to clarify then, these low spots are still contain contaminated soil. Yes, you need to get it out there.
No, don't forget, there are non-hazardous materials, which is predominantly what's across the site, and then there's some hazards, okay? What we're trying to do is we're allowed to put a 2-foot cover over it. Once we bridge it with the 2-foot cover, that material can stay there. So what we're hitting is that lower soil, which is the muck level, and we can't support even the stone layer, the 2 foot of stone on there. It won't support.
Right, I guess I'm just clarifying, because you have removed a lot of the toxic soil as well, correct?
Yes.
Is this still considered toxic soil? I know that you're allowed to cover it, but does that still have contaminants in it?
I don't believe we tested it, but we're assuming that it probably does. That's why we're putting the 2-foot cover on.
Okay, and then just my other question is, are you fairly confident that we still have the margins of the contamination? Because just bridging off what Linda said, we did cores around, but our cores obviously didn't show this layer. So just do you think are you still very confident that we have the margins of the contamination?
As far as the margins of contamination, yes, we're very comfortable with that. We're very confident that we have not found, and we're required to do testing on certain amounts of material that are removed, certain amounts of material that are mixed. I think the mixing materials that we're using, every 1,000 tons we have to test. So that test goes out and we get samples back saying, yes, you've mixed it to appropriate level. I think that the areas of the hazardous and then the non-hazardous, we've defined very, very well, and we've not encountered any other issues.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So board, I'm sorry, I didn't see more questions. Go ahead.
So, piggybacking off this with the bores that we did before, did it throughout that whole thing. Did we do it in that area where those bores should have found a mucky layer as part of that column?
We went down to what the subgrade level was to do our test. What we did in those areas is test pits, and we got down to the subgrade level, but right at that subgrade level, we did not counter that until we opened it up, then we found that material.
So you're not down deeper?
We weren't down quite deep enough where we needed to be, plus we were not really looking for that. And in our test pits, basically what we did is we dug down to what our subgrade elevation was. We took a sample and covered it right back up. What's happened is the minute we've taken off a bunch of the material, that water's just infiltrated. That material, once we've gotten down a little bit further, it's just surface water. We've gotten to that level where we just can't support anything.
And my other question, you had 3 options. Second option was drying it out.
Yes.
Some kind of lime or concrete. What would be the result of that? Are you creating a block of concrete then in the ground where the muck is?
Not necessarily. It becomes more of a dried. I've done this in the past a number of years ago when we brought lime in to dry out clay to leave that material in place because it acts as a more natural material, and you don't get that differential by bringing, as I said with the West Genesee issue, where you bring in stone and then all of a sudden you've got that freeze-thaw cycle and things are heaving and hawing in different directions. So it's a more natural way of treating the materials instead of removing only just little pockets of it and putting stone in.
So knowing that whole area is basically a water collection area, and that's one of the things we first were talking about this one. The whole area is actually designated something. It's slipping my mind right now.
Floodplain.
Thank you. Does that option or any of the other options work better or worse with the fact that that is a floodplain? 'Cause I imagine, acre here and an acre there, the concrete block however big, and now where else is the water going to go? It's not going to go there.
No, that is the point of looking at this line nest. What it does is it gives you the ability to get on that material to put our cover over it. But then it naturally because the more water you get back in, it will naturally absorb that. That's why we're looking at a lime dust, a natural material to put in there. It'd be almost like putting sawdust in. It will absorb that and then just go back to its natural state. We don't necessarily, if you think about this, we don't necessarily have to have it so hard that you can put a building over it. We're just trying to get it hard enough to be able to get equipment on it to put your 2 foot of cover. That 2 foot of cover is bridging the material. It's just if we put 2 foot on there right now, it'll sink and you'll just lose that material. We'll just have to keep bringing more and more in, and then it just pushes that stuff out to other areas. So we're just trying with that 2 foot to work it enough, to get it dried enough, so that we can get on there and put our 2 foot of cover, our mat for the do not dig, and then our 2 foot of cover, and then 6 inches of our topsoil. Like I said, the 2 foot of cover that we have elsewhere, we're hitting 96 and 98% compaction, which is enough to put a building on.
So I guess what sparked this is we talked about West Genesee and there being an upheaval of those stones. What I'm imagining, first was concrete block, but now if you're saying sawdust, but the things dry out, is there a chance that any of these fixes are going to wash away over time so that there will be then a subduction of that land, because where the muck was, whatever it was, the sawdust, as water plane flows through, we know water carries stuff, right? Is there a chance then that will actually maybe cave in a little bit on that view?
No, we don't think so at all. Basically, what we're doing again is just taking that volume of material and drying that temporarily out. That's all we're doing. We're not creating a hole or anything. All we're doing is just trying to input a material that may dry it out. Again, that's not just the only option. We're looking at the geogrid as well. The other part about that is and we did dig down, once you were able to get enough, and I actually walked it myself, you dig that slop away. If you can get into the bottom quick enough before the slop comes back in, it is hard as a rock. It's a silty, sandy clay level. You can take the excavator bucket and slam it down there as hard as possible. So you've got a nice level down there. It's just, what do you do with that intermediate level of material?
It's the low point, right?
That's it.
Water's going to find the lowest spot no matter what. Okay, all right, thank you.
Pete, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
So this layer, I mean, the water table in that area is always high, all the way around. This was not caught, was this caused by us, or this was there and just missed by us?
This is natural. This
Okay.
is natural. Once you're digging up and you're going through it, I don't have any scientific proof of it, but what it looks like to us when we started scratching around in a couple of areas, we were finding this. It's a black, mucky material. It almost looks like you would find like a swampland. We're finding old small Christmas trees. It looks like, what they did is they had a swampland there years ago, and this ash material that we're having to deal with was what they used to cover that over so that you guys could use it. So it's nothing that we've done. It's nothing that you've done. It's something that somebody did years ago. I think this muck level though was natural there from years and years and years ago. And then what they ultimately did is, whether it was National Grid or whoever, brought all this ash in to bridge that and cover it so you could use that as a field.
All right, board. So what we're going to be doing is coming back with more information for you to be continued, and the team is going to be meeting together throughout, as Peter was saying, this week, next week, trying to figure out what might be the best solution, what might be the most cost-effective solution as well, but also maintain the safety and make sure that we do this well for the district. So we will bring more information back. I just wanted to share that with you. I yesterday toured the area with Doug, and we can show you the area if you like to after this meeting. I can take you to where it's at. We'll stand outside the fence and we'll show you where it's at. When I saw it yesterday, I wanted to make sure that we got it in front of you all as soon as possible. We had a meeting today just so that you would know what was going on. Okay? So we'll be back in touch with more information. Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. All right. I'm going to switch gears now and talk a little bit about the track. Corey and Ron, I'm going to ask you both to come on up. We have a table here. If you want to bring the microphone over, you can certainly switch back and forth the microphone, or you can stand at the microphone, whatever you like. So at our last Board of Education meeting, we did talk a little bit about the track. I just wanted to kind of bring us up to par as to where we're at and what we learned. Just so we're all clear, the track's original plan, there was some items that were discussed, and after discussing those items years ago, the plan for the track was that it would be a resurfacing piece for the track, that basically they would just go and resurface the track. The equipment items were going to be purchased at a later time, a later date. And that's all the information that we can kind of go back and find, but the original plan was for a resurfacing of the track. We did visit the track and the facilities. Team went with us, and several others were there. And we learned that there were a number of concerns around the track. So years ago, this plan was put together, and where it's at today, there's some things that are missing that we know. So, you know, there were some things when we were there that we saw. We have a scoreboard that doesn't work. It just doesn't. It's just outdated, and it isn't really track. It doesn't work with what we need for track. There is no PA system that's there. So people are using like a mobile system right now when they go up there. There is no internet accessibility. Today when you go to many of the track meets, people can see stuff right on, you know, their phone. So there's no real way to tie into the internet. The bathroom facilities, they do need upgrading. They do need enlarging, especially if you're talking about bringing in people for other meets from outside, you know, from across the state. There is additional storage needed for equipment. Right now, I think they're using like a box car, basically, which they put everything in, and it is completely insufficient with all the equipment that goes on the track. There is, you know, a desire to see by some folks who were at the meeting a press box that's not there. Additional discus and shot put areas. We saw that we had some equipment that was down here. We don't know if that equipment is yet quite at code or not. Corey's shaking his head saying no, it is not. But it was an addition. It was a shot put area or discus area. It was here. It was disassembled when they pulled this track out and they put it there underneath the bleachers up at the middle school area. And then there was some concerns about, you know, updating some of the stuff around the pole vault area. So these are things that we see are some concerns in terms of that are different from what originally was the plan around the track. These are very costly items. They will, you know, to put all this stuff together, it will cost the board, you know, with the preliminary estimates that we received, and I believe I sent them to the board, anywhere from $3.1 to $3.5 million to get all of this stuff in there. You know, it's not something that we can just do. I know there's a lot of wants and a lot of desires, but I think this would need to become another capital construction project, right? It would have to go out, be bid. It's just the scope of what needs to be done is a bit much. So I know there's a lot of desires there, but the board may want to consider that. If we really want to do a lot around this track, we would need to go back out and do we need to do another capital construction project and get that approved.
Quick question.
Yes.
If we decide to go out for another capital project, what's the time frame for us to initiate that and then be able to begin?
Yeah.
What's
So
the typical time?
it takes you at least you know, about a year and a half or so to get everything together, and then once you get your vote and everything approved, if approved by your public and everything, that's about a 3 to 5 year process is what you're looking at to get that kind of all that work done, right? That's just, you know, when you go out and get all the bids, get all the, you know, people in place who are going to do the construction, you know, get it all out with PR and get everything back, and, you know, get your financing done. It's about a 3 to 5 year process is what you're looking at, basically. And again, if that's something that the board wishes to do, we have no problem with doing that. You would just need your direction on that. One of the things that the board might want to consider, and I'm certainly not suggesting that you have to do this, but, you know, we talked at, I think, a previous meeting about, you know, funds that are left over at the end of the year. Where do you put them at? There was at one time a desire to see the Ed Center money go to like a future, put it towards capital improvement, a reserve around that. If this is something you want to do, that's an idea that you may want to consider and think about. But long story short, it's going to be a $3.18+ million project is what we're thinking about in terms of estimates. And I want to thank Corey for taking the time out to really get a lot of those estimates together for us. Now, some things I would say to the board that we need to consider and just think about. We are in the middle of phase 3 right now, which is really the upgrades to the educational settings. We have classrooms, spaces across the district in our elementary schools and in our middle school that really do need renovation, that need upgrades. And I do appreciate and have a real value for athletics. I think that we, though, personally, I think we need to have a balance. The educational spaces truly need to have those upgrades. And so I am suggesting to the board that you at least, that we try to get those things done first before we go and try to do this. However, if the board wishes something different, we will certainly do whatever the board would like. And, you know, just one of the concerns that we're having right now, and we'll come back and talk to you more about it, is there's a pricing issue going on right now for lumber, metal, everything due to COVID-19. And we are concerned about, you know, we have phase 3 that's coming. We have to renovate these school buildings. And what we don't want to see is a surge of cost for the district that weren't anticipated. And right now, I have to be honest with you, I'm even thinking in my mind, maybe we should hold off a little bit to see those prices come down, because we know that lumber and some of those things, the prices are just up. So I just want to kind of put that out there so the board understands that a little bit. Now, with that said, we did go up and we looked at a couple of things. At our last board meeting, we talked about 200, nearly almost $250,000 worth of things, items that were recommended to us, that we recommended to you, that, there was a full package here, right? That included still chase barriers, long triple jump pits, pole vault boxes, international standards with extenders and pads, and pole vault mats. There's a whole array of items here. We did take the team up. Everybody got a chance to go up, facilities team. Pam joined us as well. And we got a chance to look at, all of these items. And then we came back with a prioritized list. So this list actually has come from our athletic director, Rhonda. We have both of the coaches there from track. We unfortunately couldn't join us today, but both of Christina and Jeff, thank you. Both of them were there. We had all of our folks from King & King, Corey were there with us, and here's what we came up with in terms of priorities. So one of the main concerns is the steeplechase barrier package. We do know that we definitely need to get this replaced. So over behind you over here is the steeplechase. It's older, it's wooden. Most of these things are not wooden anymore, and if you look at the top of it, you will see just how badly it's rotted out. It's truly unsafe. It's in bad shape. So that is a safety issue. I would say that I would agree with the team. That is a real priority. So there's a package that comes with it. It's $23,000. The second is the high jump mats. So we did check on the mats. We put that over here for you to see as well, so you can see. Purchased in 2008, if I remember correctly. So it is older. It is not under a mat. You can see there's a hole in the top of it. It's an older mat. Should we replace it? I think we should. There was a track crossing mat that was needed. That's, correct me if I'm wrong, Nancy and Corey, I believe it was to get equipment over the track so they wouldn't destroy the track, if I remember correctly. Go ahead.
So we talked to Dave, and basically it'll allow, from where your double gates are that's going into the track, it'll put down a 12-foot wide mat by about 75 feet long. It's in sections, so it's easy to move around. But it'll allow to get mowers out there, kids out there, so that way there's not going to be as much wear and tear on the track surface that was just put down. It is important to know, and Dave does know this, that you can't roll those out and just leave them there for the entire year. They need to come off when they're done. Otherwise, it's going to affect moisture underneath that, which will ultimately result in poorness for the track. So we ask you to coordinate with Dave as to the length he needs and the width for the mowers.
Yes.
Can you just forward the screen so
Oh,
everybody
yes,
can
I'm
see
sorry.
it?
Forgive me, I apologize. My apologies. I'm sorry. And by the way, in front of you, I put up PowerPoint in case anybody needs one. Okay, my apologies, folks who are looking there. So we do need the track crossing mat there. That's for $2,500. And then the last part was the triple long jump pit covers. So we did look at those covers. There is some concern about, there's where people kind of land in the sand, right? There's all kinds of stuff that's getting in the sand. It could be covered, and it would certainly help to keep the area a little bit better, a lot better, I would say. It rains out there, it gets yucky, sometimes stuff flows into it. We were up there at that time, I think just the day before, there was a number of items that were all in it, and it is problematic. There's no cover over it, so you got all the sand that's exposed. So the list that we have, these are the priorities that we see at this time. Everything else we think can hold. So it is a significant reduction from the 244,000, I think it was, and it's down to 109. There is some site work that would be included with the triple/long jump pit covers, basically. But and we think that this would be the best case scenario at this point in time that would certainly meet our needs. And then in the meantime, with all of the other items, the board certainly can think those through and let us know what direction you'd like to go. Rhonda, did you want to share anything else or your thoughts on that?
No, I think this will allow us to be able to utilize the new track that has been resurfaced to the best of the ability for the programs, athletics, as well as physical education.
I think Tom and I have an opportunity to go on with the facility tour, and that would be our recommendation. And after seeing the needs out there, we would agree with that.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions I was noting on here. We could purchase now from the current budget in some
Yes.
situations. The one that is the steeplechase package is the one that we have to put off, we'd have to delay to
So
21-22.
Yeah, so in the next school year's budget, there is some equipment money in the line for Roundup, and we could use it right from there for sure.
Okay.
So you could still get them all before the kids come back. Absolutely.
Okay, so we could do it, okay. So really, we're not having to do the transfer of the funds we were looking at
Correct.
before, everything that was in the budget that we have,
That's
so we
correct.
can
Yeah.
use it that way? Okay.
So yes, we did look at the financing. We did find a better way to do that as well. We have some things that are currently, as the school year has ended, we had some monies left with equipment. And what I asked Nancy to do was just encumber it, hold it in just in case to see what the board wants. If the board doesn't want it, it's okay. We just don't use it. It just goes to whatever's left over. But there were ways that we could certainly accomplish it. So we did find a better way to do that too.
The one thing I don't see listed anywhere is the protective cover along the fence, the
Yeah.
top of the fence.
So that would be something that probably we want to put into this new project as well. That covering, I thought it was, when you look at it, you think to yourself, some of these things are only going to cost you a small amount of money, but it's thousands of dollars. Corey, do you have like a little estimate for like the fence cover? I'm just blown away with the cost of some of these items.
Wish I
there.
had some, a soccer deal really big. Perimeter eligible for vaccinating gates.
What was that again?
That one again?
It's around $7,000, and that doesn't include like contingency incidentals, so probably once you add that in, probably closer to 10. But that would do all the gates, 4-foot perimeter fence, everything.
What is that exactly?
So it's the covering around the fence. So you know how at the last place they had like a
Everywhere we
yellow covering, like so people don't dig
Are you
the.
talking about where people put pool noodles?
What?
Well, if
Yes,
you-
yeah, maybe we could just do
That's
that.
cheaper.
That would be a whole lot cheaper. I think they're probably, probably not in the dollar store anymore, but $5 below.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I put in the nice ones that we have over here on the new, it's on the
Oh,
4-foot fence over here, it's the same.
Okay, I think I know what you mean, along the top.
Yes.
Okay.
That protective top.
So, thank you for going and looking at this again, for everybody who took the time, I appreciate it. I think this is a reasonable thing to get them up and going, and exactly what we need for the spring, and moving forward with it. I will also say that next week we have a plan, or 2 weeks from now, one of our plans is to continue our conversation on the reserve funds, as Dr. Calvin talked about. And I think talking about this next, in a couple of weeks as part of that, I think is a good idea. Because we do have a capital fund that has been voted on and approved for up to $10 million. I think it only has $75,000 in it now. As Dr. Calvin said, there's a million plus, a little bit more from the Ed Center that was supposed to be earmarked there, but was put somewhere else. So we have a little bit more in some of the other reserves for that. So I think the long-term thing, I think this would be a great time to pick it up again in a couple of weeks as part of our larger reserve fund conversation.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Any other thoughts?
No,
Okay.
again, I would just like to thank everyone for their time to go out there and physically see the conditions of the track at the middle school. And thank you all for the time and effort you've put in to get our numbers for us. Yeah, going forward, yeah, I like anything that we can get out of this budget or the next one, those immediate items. Those were the priority list of the coaches. I do believe that's important. I don't think anyone sitting on this board wants to take away from phase 3 of the educational aspect in the learning areas of this current project. So just want to make that clear. Thank you all.
I want to say also, I think it's a good time that we look, because we moved this over there, and this is supposed to be the focus for our track events, but we don't have key elements. So we need to keep it on the table and look in any way we can, just pick away at these things to build it up, so if we do go to a capital project that's not major, and most of it we can do in-house, and if we need to go to the public, it'll be very, very small, but it'd be nice to see if we can solve this internally.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Okay, board. So we're good to move forward with, are we all in agreement? We have consensus, we're okay to move forward with the priorities. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Corey. Oh, okay. There was a group photo that was taken. We were out in the rain, in the pouring rain, freezing. But we were there, and there was a group photo taken to show that we were there. We'll put it that way. So it's all good. All right. All right, board. We're going to move on now to our next piece of information. And that is just an update for you. As I shared it recently, we would come back and talk a little bit about the ARP and the ESSER funds. So the district recently, just so that you know, received allocations, additional allocations for ARP and ESSER funds. So originally, we were at $8.9 million, and all districts were told you're going to get a little bit more money. So some of us thought we're getting millions more. It actually didn't turn out to be millions, it turned out to be thousands. But what we got was an extra $5,880 for the ARP funds. For ESSER, our original allocation was at $3.9 million. We got an additional $2,622. So a little bit more extra to do with and for our kids, basically. Now, so right now we have no guidance on the ARP funds as of yet. We don't know, you know, can we spend it this way or that way? Nothing has come out yet. So we're kind of just pulling ideas together and trying to, you know, do our best. Things may change. So we're going to present some things to you today, and some of those things could be changing. What we do know is that, though, we must at least use 20% of this allocation for learning loss. And also it has to be evidence-based interventions have to be ensured as well there. So we had to set aside of all this money, $1.7+ million need to be set aside just to make sure on learning loss. Interventions, respond to student academic, social, and emotional needs. All those things need to be included, and we had to also address disproportionate impacts on student subgroups as well. So we certainly were looking at that as we started to put things together. Oh, something just happened. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we had also a survey that we put out. So in addition to getting voice from parents, and we plan to have some more parents coming in and giving us some more feedback, we wanted to see if there's a way to continue to get more voice in the process. So we put out a survey. A number of districts are surveying parents to kind of see what their ideas are. And we got back survey results. And Carrie, if you can help me work through this here. We had about 833 participants in the survey, which was more than what we thought we'd get back. And what I'm hearing is it's more than most districts were able to get back. So we're happy that we got 836 respondents. Some of the respondents fit into two different categories. So they may be a parent, but also a community member, or a parent and a teacher. So just so you would know that. But you can see the biggest group of people that shared feedback with us were parents and their family members. Then we had, 39% we had coming from community members as well. We had some teachers who participated and school staff, and you can see how they kind of fared amongst one another. And so we had some questions. We asked them, what do you believe are the highest priority needs? So one of the needs there was supporting our teachers. And so 1 was the highest, 6 was the lowest. We had some of our participants say yes, some of this money should basically support teachers by providing them with professional development. 47% of the people said, make sure our teachers have professional development, basically. right? And then we had another nearly 30% who said, hey, this is not the highest priority for us at this point. Providing training and workshops for parents and their guardians. We heard that, when you look at 1 through 3, right, more than half of our parents said to us, or nearly half of our parents said to us, hey, we want to have some training and workshops for ourselves on how we might be able to best support students. This is great news. I'm really excited about that. I think before I came to the district, I talked about a parent university and trying to really support parents with things that they could do at home. So it's great to hear our parents say, hey, we want to have some workshops and training for ourselves, right? We had, in terms of integrating technology into daily learning, we saw that overwhelmingly parents felt, over 50% of our parents in terms of 1, 2, and 3, in terms of priorities, highest priorities, they said to us, hey, we want to see better integration around daily learning. We want to see that happening with some of these funds. Okay. And then we asked them to rank at a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being the most pressing need, 5 not. Provide resources for parents and their families to support students at home. Again, similar questions, just kind of double checking on that. And again, you see that our parents are clear, very consistent. They want resources to support kids at home. And I'm feeling like a lot of that is, there's been a lot that's happened over the last 2 years. And parents kind of were maybe in a real shuffle, like everybody was, but definitely they took up a lot and had a lot that they had to work on with their kids. And so they wanted to really make sure there was some help and support for them. Creating time for learning, for example, more time for learning, summer school, extended school days or tutoring programs. Again, over 50% of our parents saying, hey, we want some extended learning, we want some tutoring, we want some summer school programs in place for students. Providing resources that students could use in terms of social and emotional development. And you can see right there how many of our parents are saying to us, no matter what you do with this money, you got to do something around social and emotional development. We really are feeling like, as a priority, this is a good priority, right? Which we certainly can understand. Now, we wanted to specify to see how many parents wanted support around social and emotional and mental health supports for kids. And we heard that parents really wanted support for themselves on how they could support their students socially, emotionally, and in terms of their mental health overall, status as well. So overwhelmingly, again, social and emotional ring loud to us. Parents want that help for kids.
Before you, sorry, just before you go on, can you remind us what the how this looked when it came to people? Were they given a list and they had to rate them one? This is 1 through 6 and then 1 through 5.
Yeah, so some were 1 through 6, some were 1 through 5. Carrie, you want to share a little bit about that?
It did have it with the ranking first, directions for ranking, and then they could only pick one as they were ranking. So it was a radio button. They'd select where they wanted it to fall.
So you have a list of things and you say, this is number 1 for me, this is number 2 for me?
No,
Or you have a list of things and you say, my level of importance, this is like a 3 for me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's why the numbers weren't adding up. Okay, thanks.
That's great. So again, we wanted to make sure that no matter what we did, that we took feedback from our parents. And again, highlights for me, social emotional support, extra extended days, tutoring, support with summer school. Those things rang, I would say, the loudest to me. And parents could also write any other comments that they wanted to write on this as well. And overwhelmingly, again, social, emotional came up, right? They wanted to know, hey, how can we support our kids socially, emotionally? Academically, some kids have lost some things, and they want those extra extensions onto the school day to help them. Okay? All right. So, in terms of the ESSER funds, the proposals, here are some of the things that we're thinking right now that we would like to see in the ESSER. Now, the ESSER part, that has we have to have this plan all set together by middle of July now, basically. So we definitely want to make sure you kind of look at this. At our next meeting, we want to solidify it with you to make sure you're good. and then we would put that information together for the state. The ARP stuff, we have some time with. We don't know yet what the deadline is going to be. Hopefully it won't be tomorrow, okay? So I can go down each of them. I'm sorry.
I just kept questioning on one of them. I don't think we need to put down pretty clear.
Okay.
And if anybody has any questions on any of these activities, which I do. Carrie, can you explain the 3.0 instructional coaches, the training to transition reading teachers to become instructional coaches? Are you taking them out of the classroom to make them instructional coaches? I guess I don't understand.
Currently, we utilize the reading coaches are in our buildings. So the plan has to be, how do we sustain that? So my plan, the way I'm envisioning this happening, is that we bring some coaches on board now, utilizing funding that we have within each building, each elementary building, and they work alongside our OCSD coaches, our reading league coaches, so they learn the process of being a coach. And then when that money is gone, we will be cutting back, because everything has to be sustainable. We will be no longer reliant on the reading league, the OCSD coaches, and also if we strengthen our Tier 1 reading instruction and strengthen everything to where it should be, we can reduce the amount of reading teachers we have in all the buildings and just keep instructional coaches in all the buildings to sustain the programs that we're working on. To keep our Tier 1 instruction and our Tier 2 instruction really strong. So it's really trying to phase out some of the programs that we have with the OCSD coaches, the reading coach, and also build what's happening in the classroom so that we don't have to rely on so many reading teachers to get rid of that Tier 2 instruction, because our kids are going to be reading.
That makes sense to me, but I'm wondering, do you have like a description of what a job coach does that you could share with the board at some point?
Sure.
Thank you. I'm just curious what they do on a daily basis, so that I have some knowledge.
Yeah, they will be going into classrooms and supporting teachers, and also working with some of our students that need the extra support. So,
Yeah, I'd like to see what that program looks like.
Okay.
And what they do daily.
okay, thank you.
So, boy, I just want to make sure, are you all good with what we have in front of you? Do you want me to go down it line by line? I know Linda says she's good with it, but I want to make sure everybody's okay. I can go through it, some of the highlights here if you want, or I can just kind of move.
Well, this is just a proposal for now,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
And, yeah, so unless people have,
My
does
own-
anybody want him to go line by line? Or
No, so I actually only have a generic type of questions, but at some point I do think it would be good to go through all of this so it's out there in the public. You know, so whether it's at this meeting or another meeting before it gets finalized, I do think that these kinds of things would, because it shows how much we're focused on education. It shows how much we're focused on trying to bring back the educational baseline for the last year and a half. You know, and that's really what this money is intended for, and I like the fact that that's really where it's being focused. So I don't necessarily need it myself being read up, but I do think at some point it's good to share these things so the public understands how we're using this.
Is it something we could also on our website?
Yes, once it's all finalized, we'll certainly put it up there for sure for everybody to see. What we could do at the next meeting, if you'd like, I can have a PowerPoint with everything in there. We can kind of go through it and make sure you're all good with it. The SR needs to be done by mid-July, so we have to get that done at the next meeting. But the other one we have more time on. So if you want.
What I'm focusing on in reflection on last year is trying to find ways not to present this, but we've got such short meetings, the board meetings, but they got 5 hours without executive session. When I can see that this, if we just put it out, we could put it in the paper, we could put it on the website, yeah.
I have no problem with that.
One question,
Sure.
not 20% of both these funds have to be used for lost learning, correct?
Yes, it's
Right.
20% of, yes, the $1.7 million.
Right, so the integration, I'm not putting cart before the horse, but when we get to strategic planning, right, and the integration so that the utilization of the funds, the other 80% crosses and dovetails with our objective, so we're
Yes.
utilizing in all the right places.
Yes. Glad you brought that up. So if you look at the PowerPoint in front of you, at the top of it, what we did was we told what the item was, the count of whatever was needed, information about it, what years we would use it, and then we aligned it to our strategic plan that we still need to bring back to the board next
Yeah.
meeting. But we looked at the strategic plan and we aligned that support to the strategic plan and then also to the ARP or the ESSER funds as well, just to make sure everything was aligned. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. So maybe unless you have a question about a particular item, we can certainly move on. But if you have any other questions, you have the items here in front of you. Are there any other questions? Is everybody okay today?
I had one question just about, this plan involves hiring, additional teachers and additional support, which I love that
Yes.
concept, because we definitely need more boots on the ground, but, it would only be for 2 years.
So the first one, the ESSER is for 2 years. The second is for 3 years. And one of the things that we did look at when we were kind of putting this plan together is what could be sustained, right? Some of my concerns is that these funds are going to go away in 2 or 3 years, and then what happens? Because that's a lot to sustain. So one of the things that we have kind of looked at is how many people do we expect to retire several years out? So that way, as we kind of phase out, we wouldn't see that big jump with having to, sustain cost that we don't have that money for to do it with any further. Now, of course, with retirements, somebody could be up to retire. We have people eligible right now, as Heidi has reminded me, but it doesn't mean they're going to retire right now. They could retire well after the years. But we know, for example, I believe it's like 40 teachers, if I remember correctly, that are due to retire from now up until the next couple of years. So we did keep that kind of in mind as well. I hope that helps to answer the question.
Yes, absolutely.
You gonna say-
Yep, just that it is hard to predict because we have some folks who have a plan to perhaps work until they reach a certain age, or some people who began teaching a little bit later. So in order then to get their full 30 years into the retirement system, they might need to work until they are in their early 60s. And as we saw at graduation, some folks just have such a passion for teaching, they work many, many years past a retirement eligibility. But we can predict that we think we can sustain the majority of this work through attrition and working things back into general fund categories.
Because I think 2 and 3 years, it's really hard to even ascertain the effectiveness of it.
Yes.
You kind of need a little bit more.
I agree. Totally agree.
So I had the same thought as you, Heather, about, sustainability. I'm glad
Right.
it was originally brought up. But I also think that this is a beautiful time to be able to invest money in new ideas as we're coming up with our new strategic plan. As we're looking to move the mark on number of dropouts, graduation rates, all these things that we're here to do. I think this is a great 2 to 3 years to invest the funds and then assess how they're being used. And that's a big part of it. A lot goes into planning, but assessment, a lot of people hate assessment. I get it. All right? It's tough, but it's necessary to understand how it's working. And some of these things, like reduced class sizes, might be things that help move some of our benchmarks. So we get to use these kinds of funds now to initiate it, and then possibly if we're seeing positive outcomes because of them, we may choose to continue those practices and not rely on a retirement, but say that retirement's being replaced because we figured out that having first grade at these reduced class size in these buildings, that really helps the educational outcomes. So as much as I have in the last year and a half of this pandemic, always trying to look on the bright side. The bright side of this is millions of dollars of an infusion at a time when we're really taking the time to plan carefully and then assess carefully. It's really nice to have.
Yes.
So I do appreciate the fact that it has to be planned as
totally agree with you, Jim. You know, it is a time to be also very innovative with what we do. So in the last page of the art funds, one of the ideas that we have that we would like to see in place, we talked a lot about it, is at the high school. Here's a great example of something different, innovative, that we think can help. One of the things we talked about is putting into place a learning center for our high school kids, where here's a place where you have academic intervention staff in the center. When kids have a free period or time in their schedule that they can schedule it into, they go into the learning center. There's a variety of staff there. There's someone who can help them with science, social studies, children who need AIS services, reading or math. There's a staff that is there, a team of folks there to really assist the students and help them to kind of keep up with their academics, but also provide that supplemental instruction that kids need. That's the reteaching, the pre-teaching, the extensions that maybe they're missing right now. The goal is to help to increase the graduation rate at the high school. And so we do a lot, I think, of intervention at elementary levels and even at the middle school level. And we do have some intervention in place at the high school level. But this is another layer to help raise, hopefully, the outcome with respect to students. You'll also see in the plan for some of these funds that we put in things like an AIS teacher for science, for social studies, and math, some additional folks at the high school as well. So we know at science, there are a number of children who are not meeting standards, and they get behind in labs, and it's really a challenge to catch up. And there's not that academic intervention support to help in those areas. Social studies, all of them, it's not just ELA and math. There's a variety of other areas too. So we put into this plan a number of items such as those. And again, our goal is to increase the outcomes around graduation rate. This is a good time to do it. Like you said, we have funds to help us do it. Try something out, see how it works. And if it works for us, something that we could hopefully will work to sustain. So a lot of thought, a lot of ideas that are creative outside the box. We have more that are still coming to us. The principals, they have a whole team of people. They've got themselves, they've got some parents, they've got labor relation members at each of the buildings, committees that are all working, and they're still sending us those ideas. And so we will bring additional ideas back to you at the next board meeting. But I agree with you. I said a lot to say I agree with you, Jim. Okay. Any other questions from the board on either of these? Everybody good?
No, I'd just like to thank you and your team. It really is a well thought out plan. You spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. I do always appreciate outside the box thinking and finding those new ways. And I'm excited going forward.
Okay. All right. Going to move forward now then. So the last thing I want to talk to the board about, let's see. End of year trip. So we have, at our last meeting, the board talked about looking at end of year trips. Are there some creative things that we can do around that? And we want to do some surveying and kind of bring some ideas back. We did do some, some preliminary discussions around this, but we were at the end of the year, and it was difficult for us to survey all of our juniors because it was like the week just before finals, and some kids were here, some were not. We couldn't get everybody to do a survey. So what we're thinking is we'd like to do a survey next school year when kids come back, have the junior class council help us to get that survey done. And we have been researching some opportunities. There are some local opportunities out there that we can certainly look at. Just some ideas that we've heard of is, trips like, Buffalo, Niagara Falls, Lake George has some things that are there. There are some additional out-of-state options that are not as expensive. Another thought that came up is an overnight camping trip opportunity where the kids can go to a camp and do some overnight kinds of things there. I have to tell you, I've had some experience with this type of an opportunity. My kids have actually gone through something like this at their school. They don't do the extended trips to Disney because there have been concerns similar to what you have shared. As we kind of move forward, the goal that we're working on is affordability, making sure that we celebrate our students wherever possible, but also making it a learning and a connecting kind of activity for our seniors before they end their senior years. I will tell you that there are some districts out there who are lowering costs significantly by doing local and/or state trips. And also some districts are doing now all-inclusive kinds of packages. So for example, my children have had an experience where at their school, they have an all-inclusive package. So at your freshman year, when you come in, they have an orientation with all the kids, and they talk with them about a package, which is just under $200. And in the package, you get a class T-shirt for every year that you are there. It's $40, $10 a T-shirt. You get a senior trip, and they do the camping overnight, so the senior trip is included with it. And then your prom and your senior ball tickets are also included in that amount as well. So the whole package is about $150. And what occurs is that you have over 4 years to pay. So, if you take a little bit, take a chunk out of each year to pay, split that $150 over 4 years. And what we know that there are some kids who may not be able to afford it. So what they have done is, the senior class, the junior class, whatever class it is, every year they have fundraisers. And they together fundraise, and it's not like selling candy and selling candles and everything else. They do they do some kind of event, a dance or something. They fundraise together, and then they find ways to, those kids who have challenges, the principal and the team just kind of takes care of it, and there's no discussion, there's no big issue around it. It's just done in that way. But what it does is it does provide an opportunity so that all children can participate. Now, I'm not saying that this has to be the one here, right? I'm sure people are going to watch this, but I would say it is a great opportunity to think this through and think about this, because it is happening in other school districts. It is working, and there's some great opportunities that we might want to capitalize on. So just wanted to share that with the board. Just some ideas that we're thinking about. You asked us about data. Wanted to share with the board that we did look at what's happening currently at the end of the year trip. So you can see the numbers of kids who are attending right now. You see the cost. You see the number of payments and the approximate class size. So, the last time they went, there were 66 kids who kind of went. There were some challenges that year. I think there were some additional trips that were being planned or something like that. It was just before COVID, if I remember correctly. But there was 66 out of 245. Before that, 98 out of 270. So you can see between 28 to maybe at the highest year, 41% of the kids do these trips, basically, or less. We also checked in, I think there were some questions about free or reduced lunch rates. So one caveat with this information, some of the children who may qualify for free or reduced lunch rates, sometimes the parents don't apply and don't put in, they don't, for whatever reason. So it's hard to say these are the only children, but from those who did go on the trip, you can see the numbers that we can at least ascertain from each year in terms of who was free or reduced lunch eligible. So roughly anywhere from 5 to 10% or more a year were free or reduced lunch eligible who went. Go ahead.
So as a reference, what is that number for our general population students?
The free or reduced lunch rate? Yeah, we have not. Okay.
Do you have just an estimate, Nancy? Is it, years ago it was 40, but I think it's raised to about 60 at this point.
65.
It's even above 60.
About 60,
So if you
65%
put those things together.
16 what?
Okay.
High school's
So half the kids in the high school are on the free and reduced lunch.
Yes.
But only 10% to 5% are going on trips in the year. Okay. It just helps to have that reference number to look at those.
Yeah.
That's definitely
You and many others, I
disproportionate.
think, I think you and many other people were never aware.
Okay, so we just want to share with you where we're at. We will come back with more information. You can continue for sure.
Yeah, and thank you for
Yes,
some of these
thank you.
options are really exciting. I know for some people it may not feel like Disney, but there's a lot of meaningful things that can happen when you're camping or when you're outdoors together. And if I'm not mistaken, your kid's school that you use as a reference is much bigger than this district, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
So it's easy, you can accommodate the numbers with those options.
They've gone to every year there's a Boy Scout camp up near Penn. It's pretty large, and they have all kinds of activities. They do like an Olympics day. They have a water day. It's a 3-day weekend, and there's a lot that happens. The kids have they have a huge dinner one night, a huge dance tonight. We have a bunch of entertainment come in. And between, again, the classes fundraising and, the cost that the kids put towards it, they're able to cover it. It is definitely much more affordable for kids. So, something to think about as I kids. Okay? All right? All right. Okay, board. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is personnel with Heidi Sweeney.
Just because we just seated a new board, shall I continue with grouping professional and support staff recommendations except for those we need to vote on separately?
Are you okay with that, Sean?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, starting with our professional staff recommendations. Number 1, we have 4 resignations. Brian Green, head coach, Heather Robillard, school social worker, Donna Tesserario, teaching assistant, and Stacy Van Waldick, Van Kampen, art teacher. 2, we have 2 professional staff recommendation administrative tenures for Lisa Marie Carter, our director of special education, and Jennifer Sullivan, our elementary school principal, effective in July. 3, our batch of our teacher tenure recommendations. They are effective as of September 1st, 2021, as presented in a variety of our schools, and congratulations to them. 4, professional staff recommendation, leaves of absence for the 2021-22 school year, Amy Leopold in ENL and Rachel Little as an elementary teacher at Minetto. 5, a professional staff recommendation, regular substitute, Aaliyah Amiot, elementary at Minetto. 6, professional, summer professional development. As an explanation, as we have a new board member, normally new incoming folks are not on any sort of payroll period until 9/1, and so we would like to suggest an opportunity for them to attend necessary professional development over the summer and have the same opportunity and process to be paid for their time as if they were already on our payroll as of 9/1. So that is that recommendation. 7, extra compensatory. We will bring we already brought most of our in-service instructors, but as folks get trained or as needed, we'll bring a few other names forward. So that's Michelle Gorham, Erin Lee, and Billy Joe Peterson. 8, extra compensatory for marching band, Kim Miller and Brian Miller, woodwind and percussion. 9, we have a new club at OMS proposed, so this would be the pilot year, which is why the stipend is 0. So it's the Strength and Conditioning Boys and Girls Club, and they'll gauge interest throughout the year and then make a decision about the viability next year. 10, extended school year. Again, we brought a previous batch, so these are just in addition, and they are as needed as we are gearing up for our summer school programming, which will start next week after the 4th of July holiday. And that is the end of our professional recommendations, so 1 through 10.
Items 1 through 10, could I have a motion?
Move it.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I just would like to, on number 1, those resignations, good luck to all those folks, but there's a couple, the district is losing some long-time, very good employees.
Absolutely.
That we will miss them. So, but good luck in their choices in their future. Thank you for your time.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then picking back up with number 11, our support staff recommendations. 11, 2 terminations, Karen Dana Cook and Miranda Fensky, food service helper. 12, a leave of absence request at the beginning of the school year for Kristen Roberts, food service helper. Probationary appointments, Jessica Pappalardo, school district treasurer, and Lisa Randall, typist. 14, we will still anticipate needs for a COVID coordinator for the next school year based on current vaccination opportunities as well as reporting requirements to the Department of Health. So we're bringing forward Christina Chamberlain's appointment as the COVID coordinator for the next school year. And we have a summer school COVID coordinator, Annalie Harrell. 16, support staff recommendations for our summer school programming as presented. 17, our summer strength and conditioning. We were able to run this program a couple of summers ago, and then obviously last summer we were not able to, so we're fortunate that we're able to bring back an opportunity for students to be able to work out with the professional, and Michael Schlichtig will be doing that. 18, support staff recommendation for temporary summer as needed, Suzanne Kells. 19, we have a rescission. Cindy Zuber has recently taken a different position and therefore a 12-month, so she's no longer able to take on the summer hours because she'll be working summer from now on. And 20 is our substitute and temporary employee recommendations. And then Karen, I think we'll do 21 separately, so 11 through 20.
Okay. Items 11 through 20, if I could have a motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I do have a question on number 11.
Yes.
The language in the first letter says position be terminated. Is that elimination of position, or that was my question?
No, the short answer is we're not eliminating the position, but rather the employee. Let me just make sure I have that letter. Oh, that her position she holds be terminated.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, the language just.
And I just have one question. Cindy Zuber was a clerk and has taken the promotion as a typist.
Correct.
And I see a typist has gone in. Is that one of those situations where we reviewed the duties of that
Yes.
particular person and then re-upped it because they were different than the actual clerk really met a typist?
Absolutely.
Fair.
So there are times when we have a civil service position and a person who holds that position moves into a different role in the district. It gives us the opportunity to review those duties, and working with Mary Beth and the middle school administrative team, that was one of her asks over the last couple of budget years. So we were able to make some modernization and some adjustments to the job description that way.
Thank you.
I should also mention too, our COVID nursing staff have done a great job, and so it's I don't know, we owe them a lot of gratitude for all the extra time and effort.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So.
to piggyback on that,
Yeah.
I'm sure Dr. Campbell will say we could not have done it without Christina and her team.
Honestly, yeah. The lady has gone above and beyond.
There's
She
like no
has.
words.
Yeah, nights,
During the
weekends.
Yes, every Saturdays, Sundays, she's gone above and beyond.
We appreciate it very much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And my last item, 21, it's our standard workday for employees. We review this each year and present it at one of our summer meetings typically. It's just a requirement that we have to submit for the employees' local retirement system.
Could I have a motion on item 21?
Linda moved it.
Oh. Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Just a question. Has anything changed from last year?
I believe we added lifeguards to the list. The rest of it should be the same. Yep, you're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is items from the board. Would any board member have any items today?
Just my normal thank our faculty and staff for a year that like no other, and we hope we never have to go through another one like it, because we couldn't have done anything without all of them, and it is so appreciated. Enjoy your summer.
I just want to say I had the opportunity when Senior Dinner Dance was held over at the Foundry to watch, observe, engage with all the kids, and how impressed I was with so many of them. Just in terms of the respect not only for our staff or for people, but for each other, and how they looked out for each other. And I know it was an opportunity, and how they danced, and how they had a very good time. And it was just it was a moment that just made me very proud, and to look at them and how they helped each other out. It was just a wonderful evening. So I want to congratulate them, all the advisors, and everybody who was involved with that. It was a great night.
I want to welcome Sean once again. It's really nice to have you and your expertise here. I'm really excited about this year. I think, well, it's just exciting to be in person and to see everyone's faces and to be here. And I'm really excited about this year. We have a really strong team of leadership here and good things to come for sure. In the line of administration, many of you have already said that there's some issues in the beginning of August and maybe even into the middle of August with travel. So just as a heads up, next meeting we will discuss that and potentially move some of the August meetings to accommodate people's schedules.
If I can also let the board know that I put a folder on each of your spots with a couple documents in there. If you could read them and just sign them and get them back to me, I'd appreciate it. Okay. So at this time, that the Board of Education move to executive session for the purpose of negotiations. If I could have a motion.
Discuss the performance of a particular staff member,
Okay.
that whole piece there.
If I could have a motion.
I'll move it.
Linda's got to give it a voice.
Yeah.
Linda.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You may move to executive session, and that'll be in the library.
Okay, no votes after, correct? No vote after.
No vote after. Thank you.